Somewhere in the lost files of a Charleston courthouse, hidden under years of water damage and neglect, lies a birth record that should not be there. The paper, dated March 1847, lists the birth of a baby to a woman named Celia. But the doctor's notes have numbers and details that go against everything we know about human pregnancy. The numbers do not match any medical understanding of having a baby, back then or right now. The Charleston Medical Society quietly hid the related papers in 1849, and 3 doctors involved in the situation left the state within 18 months, never to work in medicine again. For over 150 years, the families of those who saw what happened have refused to talk about the details, passing down only warnings to leave Celia's story alone. Tonight, we are looking at the written facts of a case that makes no sense. Not through ghosts or magic, but through events so scary that those who knew the truth chose to stay quiet instead of telling anyone. Before we go on with the story of Celia and the impossible pregnancy that scared Charleston's medical group, I need you to do something. Subscribe to this channel right now, because stories like this, ones that history tried to hide, do not get told anywhere else. And comment below, what state or city are you listening from? I want to know how far these forgotten American mysteries go. What made Celia's case so deeply upsetting was not what people claimed to see, but what the medical pros wrote down: measurements, dates, and physical things that were impossible, which no amount of not knowing or believing in magic could explain away. Charleston, in the 1840s, was a city of opposites, where huge money existed right next to cruel slavery, where high society depended completely on the work of those it refused to see as fully human. The port city was busy with business, cotton, rice, and indigo moving through its docks, making rich men richer, while enslaved people did every job that kept the money coming. The city's medical group had become famous during this time, with several doctors writing papers on tropical sicknesses, birth problems, and what they called the strange physical differences of enslaved people. This was research done without asking, often in the worst ways possible. The Hartwell Plantation sat 12 miles northwest of Charleston, a medium-sized farm of about 300 acres worked by 42 enslaved people. Edmund Hartwell had got the property from his father in 1839, and unlike many men of his time, he took an active interest in running his land. His wife Margaret had died giving birth in 1842, leaving him with no children and growing bitterness. The manager, a man from Virginia named Thomas Gaines, ran the daily work with known meanness that Edmund either ignored or silently liked. Celia had been born on the Hartwell Plantation in 1826, making her about 20 years old when this story began. Records describe her as built strong, good in the fields and kitchen, but quiet in personality. She worked mostly in the big house after Margaret Hartwell died, doing cooking and cleaning. Several reports from Gaines noted her good behavior and hard work, the kind of boring notes that filled many plantation books, showing nothing of the person inside. The other enslaved people on the Hartwell land included Samuel, a metalworker of great skill who had been bought from a Savannah House sale in 1844, and old Ruth, a woman in her 60s, who acted as a midwife and healer for the enslaved group. Ruth had delivered more than 100 babies over her life, having the kind of real-world medical knowledge that came from years of doing it out of need. The slave cabins were 12 rough houses in 2 rows behind the big house, each holding many families in tight, bad conditions. Charleston's medical world in this time included several well-known doctors who would become part of Celia's story. Dr. William Saunders had worked in the city for 15 years, mostly helping rich white families, but sometimes called to help enslaved people when their value as property needed medical help. Dr. James Pritchard, younger and wanting success, had recently come from Philadelphia with new ideas about birthing babies and had written 2 papers on mother's health. Dr. Henry Strickland, the oldest of the 3, had been a doctor for nearly 40 years and was known for his careful notes and scientific ways. The winter of 1846 went normally on the Hartwell Plantation. The cotton had been picked and fixed, the fields got ready for the next planting time, the endless circle of work going on without a break. Celia did her jobs in the main house, mostly unseen by Edmund Hartwell, except when he needed something. The other enslaved people saw nothing strange about her actions or looks during these months. Old Ruth would later say that Celia had shown no signs of sickness or body changes through the whole winter. It was not until March of 1847 that things would change Celia from a nameless enslaved woman into the focus of medical notes so disturbing that it would haunt Charleston's doctors for years. On the morning of March 18th, 1847, Celia fell down while carrying firewood into the big house. Edmund Hartwell, annoyed by the break in his breakfast, sent for old Ruth to handle it. Ruth arrived to find Celia awake, but in clear pain, her stomach hard and swollen, her breathing short. What Ruth found during her checkup caused her to do something she had never done before. She refused to help the patient and demanded that Edmund send for a white doctor right away. "I ain't touching this," Ruth reportedly told the other enslaved women who had gathered. "This ain't natural. This ain't right. Mr. Hartwell needs to get a real doctor." Edmund, bothered by what he thought was Ruth's superstition but worried about losing property, sent a rider to Charleston to get Dr. Saunders. The doctor arrived late that afternoon, expecting to find a simple stomach ache or maybe a lost baby. What he found instead would challenge everything he thought he knew about the human body. Dr. Saunders's first notes, kept in the Charleston Medical Society files, are scary to read. He wrote that Celia's stomach was hugely swollen, hard to the touch, with movement clearly seen under the skin. This suggested a late pregnancy, except that Celia, according to every witness, including Edmund Hartwell himself, had shown absolutely no signs of being pregnant until that very morning. No morning sickness, no bigger chest, no changes in hunger or mood, no slow growing of the belly that comes with a normal baby. The patient showed no signs of pregnancy at any point before today, Dr. Saunders wrote. Yet the exam shows clear proof of advanced pregnancy guessed at 7 to 8 months by measuring the stomach. This is medically impossible. A pregnancy cannot get to such a late stage without visible signs. Either the patient has been hiding her condition through ways unknown to medical science, or we are seeing something totally outside my experience. Dr. Saunders did more exams, bringing in Dr. Pritchard for a second opinion. Both doctors wrote down the same impossible thing. Celia looked to be in the late stages of having a baby, yet she had shown no symptoms at all until that morning. The baby's heartbeat was strong and easy to hear through a tool. The movement inside her stomach was strong and frequent. By every medical rule, she was carrying a healthy, nearly full-term child, one that had somehow grown without any of the normal signs. Edmund Hartwell, practical about his property, asked the clear question, when did this happen? Who is responsible? The question showed an even deeper mystery. Celia, when asked, insisted she had been with no man. Old Ruth backed this up, stating that she would have known if any of the enslaved men had been with Celia. Such things rarely stayed secret in the tight spaces of plantation life. Thomas Gaines, the manager, denied having anything to do with it and said Celia was lying. Edmund Hartwell himself had taken no interest in Celia in that way, and his house staff confirmed he mostly avoided the enslaved women since his wife died. She says she ain't been with nobody, old Ruth told Dr. Saunders, and I believe her. Something else going on here. Dr. Pritchard tried to ask Celia about when she might have gotten pregnant, walking her through the time. By his math, if she was indeed 7 to 8 months pregnant, the start would have been in late July or early August of 146. Celia stuck to her story that she had been with no one during that time or any time since. The plantation books showed no visitors during that period, no traveling salesmen or wandering workers who might have been near the cabins. Over the next 3 days, Celia's condition moved fast. Her belly kept growing at a speed that scared both doctors. Dr. Saunders's notes from March 21st say, patient's abdomen has grown by 4 inches since first exam 3 days ago. This speed of growth has never been seen. The fetus stays active, heartbeat strong. Patient feeling much pain but no labor pains yet. Unable to explain what we see through any known medical ideas, Dr. Strickland joined the other doctors on March 22nd, and his being there gave more weight to the notes. A man of science who trusted only what he could measure and see, Strickland did his own checkup alone. His findings matched his colleagues. Celia was without doubt pregnant with a healthy baby, yet the timing and growth made no sense. I have helped with more than 1,000 births in my career, Dr. Strickland wrote in his private journal. I have never seen anything like this case. Either this woman has tricked us all through ways I cannot guess, or we are looking at a biological impossibility. I lean toward the second one, though I cannot explain what could cause such fast growth. The doctors talked about moving Celia to Charleston for better watching, but Edmund Hartwell said no, stating he would not have his property walked through the city streets. The doctors agreed to stay at the plantation, writing down the case with scientific care while waiting for the birth to start naturally. On the evening of March 23rd, Celia went into labor. What followed would lock this case in Charleston's medical history as something that should never have happened, and that no one who saw it could ever fully explain. The labor lasted 14 hours, starting just after the sun went down and going through the night into the next morning. Dr. Saunders, Dr. Pritchard, and Dr. Strickland all helped, with old Ruth there to give practical help. The doctors wrote down every part of the process with unusual care, perhaps feeling they were seeing something that would need lots of proof to be believed. Dr. Pritchard's birth notes describe a delivery that went normally in every way except one: the size of the baby. The child, a girl, weighed 11 pounds and was 23 inches long, much bigger than average, but not impossibly so. She looked healthy and fully grown, crying loudly when born, showing no signs of trouble or problems, but the timing made no sense. The doctors had checked Celia 3 days earlier and guessed her pregnancy at 7 to 8 months. Yet the baby delivered showed every sign of being full term, with the body growth typical of 40 weeks. The fast move from near term to birth suggested a growth speed that broke every rule of how babies are made. The baby shows traits consistent with full growth. Dr. Strickland wrote, fully formed lungs, loud cry, strong muscles, right amount of fat under skin. Yet our check of the mother 5 days ago showed a pregnancy of about 32 weeks. Either our first guess was hugely wrong, which I cannot accept given 3 separate exams, or this child grew at a rate that doesn't fit human biology. Edmund Hartwell, presented with a healthy enslaved baby girl who would eventually mean more money, showed no special interest in the medical mystery. He named the child Dinina, as was his right, and ordered that Celia go back to work as soon as she got better. For him, the situation had ended well. He had lost no property and gained a future worker, but the doctors could not let it go. Dr. Saunders, Dr. Pritchard, and Dr. Strickland met at Dr. Strickland's Charleston office 3 days after the birth to look over their notes. They had numbers, dates, multiple separate exams, all pointing to the same impossible result. Celia had gone from showing no signs of pregnancy to having a full-term baby in less than a week. We must think about the chance that we were somehow tricked, Dr. Pritchard suggested during their meeting. Maybe the woman tied her stomach tight through the pregnancy, hiding her state until she couldn't anymore. Such things are not unknown. Dr. Strickland shook his head. I checked her clothes. There was no binding, and no binding could hide a pregnancy so completely that she showed absolutely no body changes for 8 months. The chest alone would have got much bigger. Her walk would have changed. She would have gained weight other places than the stomach. Every enslaved person on that plantation swears she showed no signs at all until the morning of March 18th. Then what do you suggest? Dr. Saunders asked. That the child appeared inside her womb in a few days. That human pregnancy can somehow speed up to finish in less than a week. Such a claim would ruin our professional names. The 3 men sat in silence, facing papers that seemed true, yet described events that could not possibly have happened. They had seen something that challenged the base of medical science, yet they could not publish their findings without inviting jokes and career ruin. Dr. Strickland made a suggestion. We send a sealed report to the Charleston Medical Society listing what we saw without making conclusions. We present the facts as we wrote them, the dates, the numbers, the many exams. We admit the impossibility of what we saw while saying our notes are correct. Future medical men with more knowledge than us might be able to explain what we cannot. The other doctors agreed to this deal. On April 3, 1847, they sent their group report to the Charleston Medical Society, along with all their notes, numbers, and findings. The Society's answer came 2 weeks later. The report would be taken and sealed, but not printed or shared. The case of Celia's impossible pregnancy would be saved for the future, but hidden from public eyes. The board finds the notes strong, but the meaning too strange for public sharing. The Society's letter stated, such a case, if widely known, would cause wild stories and hurt public trust in medical science. The report will be kept in our files for possible future study. The doctors accepted this decision, though not without doubt. Dr. Pritchard, in a letter to a friend in Philadelphia, wrote, "We have seen something that has no explanation, yet we are forced to be quiet by professional need. I cannot say whether we saw a miracle, a trick beyond human skill, or a natural event so rare and weird that science hasn't explained it yet. I know only that I saw what I saw, and it should not have been possible. For the enslaved community at the Hartwell Plantation, Celia's strange pregnancy became a topic of whispered guessing. Some saw it as a blessing, others as something darker. Old Ruth, who had refused to help Celia during her first collapse, kept her distance even after the safe birth. "That child ain't right," Ruth told the other enslaved women. "Don't matter that she look healthy. Something wrong with how she came to be." Celia herself got better physically from the birth within a few weeks, but those who knew her noticed changes in her mood. Where she had been quiet and plain before, she now seemed pulled back and scared. She refused to talk about how she got pregnant with anyone, simply insisting she had been with no man and knew nothing more than that. Edmund Hartwell, true to his word, put Celia back to work in the main house. The baby Dinina was left in the care of other enslaved women during the day, as was standard. For several months, the situation seemed to settle into a new normal, a mystery that had been seen, written down, and then purposely buried. But Celia's story was far from over. The impossible way Dinina was made and her fast growth would prove to be just the first chapter of a mystery that would get deeper and darker as the child grew. Dinina's early growth went normally by all easy checks. She ate well, gained weight right, and reached normal baby goals without trouble. Edmund Hartwell, happy that his property had gone up in value without problems, paid little attention to either mother or child beyond making sure they did their assigned jobs. But old Ruth, whose years of experience had taught her to spot signs others might miss, began writing down worrying things about the child. Ruth couldn't read or write, but she had a great memory, and she shared her worries with Samuel, the blacksmith, who could write and secretly kept a journal hidden in his shop. Samuel's journal notes from late 1847 and early 1848, found decades later among the papers of his grandkids, give scary details that the white doctors never knew. According to these notes, Dinina showed body and brain growth way ahead of normal patterns. At 6 months, she could sit without help and was trying to pull herself to stand. Goals usually reached months later. At 8 months, she spoke her first words, not the baby sounds of speech, but clear, known words. Ruth says the child ain't natural, Samuel wrote in October 1847, says she growing too fast, learning too quick, says it reminds her of something, but she won't say what. Other women scared of the baby won't hardly look at her. Celia don't say nothing, just keep her head down and do her work. The fast growth, while strange, might have been brushed off as special but not impossible. Some children just grow faster than others, but other things written in Samuel's journal suggested something more deeply wrong. The child don't cry like other babies, Samuel wrote in December 1847. Ruth says she never heard a baby cry like that, says it sounds wrong, like something trying to sound like a baby but not quite right. Women say they hear the child making sounds at night, sounds no baby should make. In February 1848, when Dinina was about 11 months old, an event happened that turned the enslaved community's fear into something close to terror. One of the younger enslaved women, a 15-year-old named Grace, was told to watch Dinina while Celia worked in the main house. Grace later reported to old Ruth that she had seen Dinina, who should barely have been walking, moving across the cabin floor with strange skill, and that when the child had looked right at her, Grace had felt such deep wrongness that she had screamed and run from the cabin. That child looked at me, and I saw something in her eyes. Grace told Ruth, according to Samuel's journal, something that knows things. something that understands things no baby should understand. I ain't going near that child again. Thomas Gaines, the manager, noticed the workers didn't want to deal with Dinina and blamed it on ignorance and superstition. He told Edmund Hartwell that the Negroes have taken some foolish idea about Celia's child, but that it wasn't stopping work. Edmund, worried only about order and results, told Gaines to beat the superstition out of them if needed, but otherwise ignore it. Celia herself had become more alone within the group. The other women, who used to include her in talk and shared jobs, now avoided her when possible. Celia seemed to understand their fear and didn't try to fight it. She cared for Dinina with robotic efficiency, doing the basic needs of motherhood without the warmth usually seen between mother and child. Celia treats that baby like she's scared of it too. Samuel wrote in March 1848, "Holds it when she has to, feeds it when she has to, but soon as she can put it down, she does. Never sings to it like mothers do, never plays with it. Just does what she must and nothing more." The situation might have gone on forever in this state of uneasy calm, with the enslaved group frightened but quiet, and the white residents of the plantation totally unaware of any problem. But in April 1848, events would force the mystery back into the open in a way that could not be ignored. Dr. Pritchard, who had been one of the doctors at Dinina's birth, happened to be visiting a nearby plantation for work when he saw Celia and the child outside the Hartwell land. Curious about how the baby from the impossible pregnancy had grown, he walked over to do a quick check. What he saw shocked him deeply. Dinina, at just over 1 year old, showed body and brain growth equal to a child of at least 2 years. She walked with sure balance, spoke in short but full sentences, and showed puzzle-solving skills far beyond her age. Plus, her body shape seemed slightly wrong in ways Dr. Pritchard couldn't quite explain. The length of her arms and legs compared to her body, the size of her head, the space between her features. The child is growing at an amazing rate, Dr. Pritchard wrote in his private journal that evening. If I had not been at her birth myself, if I did not have proof of her date of birth, I would guess her age at 2 years minimum. This cannot be natural difference. This represents a continuation of the same fast growth we saw in the womb. What are we seeing? What process drives this impossible growth? Dr. Pritchard contacted Dr. Saunders and Dr. Strickland, suggesting they ask Edmund Hartwell for permission to do a full medical check of the child. The other doctors, their interest sparked again, agreed. They went to Hartwell with their request, framing it as a chance to write down a medically important case that might help Charleston's fame for science. Edmund, happy for the attention and wondering if Dinina's unusual growth might raise her value, gave permission for the checkup. On April 28, 1848, the 3 doctors returned to the Hartwell Plantation to study the child who should not have existed. Just when we thought we'd seen it all, the horror in Celia's story gets worse. If this story is giving you chills, share this video with a friend who loves dark mysteries. Hit that like button to support our content, and don't forget to subscribe to never miss stories like this. Let's find out together what happens next. The checkup took place in the main house living room, with Edmund Hartwell watching and Celia standing silently in the corner, her face carefully empty of feeling. The doctors had brought measuring tools, growth tests, and detailed charts for writing their findings. Dinina, at 13 months old, stood 32 inches tall and weighed 28 pounds, numbers fitting a healthy child of 24 to 30 months. Her moving skills, talking growth, and thinking abilities all matched an age range of 2 to 2 years. The speed of her growth had not slowed since birth, but had stayed steady, as if her inside clock ran at roughly twice the normal speed. "Most amazing," Dr. Strickland whispered, noting her words and sentences. "The child speaks with clearness I would not expect until at least 24 months. Yet she is barely past her first birthday." But the doctor's wonder began to shift toward worry as they kept checking. Dr. Pritchard noted that Dinina's reflexes were strangely sharp. Her answers to things were almost supernaturally quick. Her eyes followed movement with an intensity and focus more typical of much older children. And there was something in her look, a quality of attention that seemed unsettling in a baby. "She watches us," Dr. Saunders noted quietly, with purpose, as if judging us. The most disturbing things came during the body check. When Dr. Strickland tried to look at Dinina's throat and mouth, the child pulled away with surprising strength. When he kept trying, she looked right at him and said with perfect clearness, "No, that hurts." The three doctors exchanged looks. The statement itself was not strange. Many toddlers fight during medical exams, but the clearness, the tone, the purposeful sharing of complex ideas suggested a level of growth far beyond even the fast timeline they had been writing down. "How old are you?" Dr. Pritchard asked the child more as a test than expecting a real answer. Dinina looked at him for a long moment, then said, "I don't know. How old are you?" The question, with its implied understanding of age as an idea and its purposeful turning around of the question, should have been beyond a child of 13 months. Edmund Hartwell laughed, delighted by what he saw as early smarts. The doctors did not laugh. They finished their exam in silence, writing numbers and notes with growing discomfort. The child was healthy by every standard medical rule: strong heartbeat, clear lungs, good muscles, right weight for her height. But the whole of what they were seeing suggested something deeply wrong despite the clear health. As they got ready to leave, Dr. Strickland made an unusual request. "Mr. Hartwell, I would like to check the mother as well, if you allow. I want to make sure she is fully recovered from the birth and check for any lasting problems." Edmund waved his hand casually. "Do as you wish. I have work to do." He left the room, taking Dinina with him. Alone with Celia and the other doctors, Dr. Strickland asked the question that had been bothering all three of them. "What happened to you? The truth, please. We are doctors. Whatever you tell us, we need to know the medical facts." Celia stood silent for a long moment, her hands tight at her sides. When she finally spoke, her voice was so quiet they had to lean forward to hear. "I told you the truth before. I've been with no man. I don't know how that child came to be inside me. One day I was normal. Next day I could feel something there growing fast, real fast. It hurt like something eating me from the inside, getting bigger and bigger. I wanted to die before that thing was born." "You called your daughter that thing?" Dr. Pritchard noted gently. "Why?" "Because she ain't right," Celia said, and for the first time, real emotion cracked through her careful mask. "I birthed her, but she ain't mine. She came from somewhere else. She using me, used my body to get born, but she ain't my child. I know a mother supposed to love her baby, but when I look at her, all I feel is wrong, like something wearing a baby's skin." The three doctors stood frozen, unsure how to answer this confession. Dr. Saunders tried logic. "Women sometimes have trouble bonding with their babies, especially under trauma." Or, "I ain't crazy." Celia cut in, her voice sharp. "I know what you're thinking. Poor slave woman don't know no better. Got strange ideas, but you seen her, you checked her. You know something ain't right. You got your numbers and your notes, But you can feel it too, can't you? That child ain't natural." The doctors could not deny the bad feeling they had felt during the exam. Dr. Strickland cleared his throat. "We have noted certain unusual parts of the child's growth. Her growth speed is unheard of, but unusual is not the same as—" "I'm telling you," Celia said. And now there was fear in her voice, raw and open. "That child knows things. She understands things no baby should understand, and she getting stronger. She keeps growing at this speed, keeps getting smarter this fast. What's she going to be in another year, in 2 years? Something that can pass for a child, but ain't one." Before any of the doctors could answer, the parlor door opened and Edmund Hartwell came back with Dinina walking beside him. "Are you finished with your exam?" he asked. "I have work to attend to." The doctors gathered their tools and left, thanking Edmund for his help. As they rode back toward Charleston, none of them spoke until they were well away from the plantation. "That woman is terrified of her own child," Dr. Pritchard said finally, "and after that exam, I cannot say her fear is totally crazy. We are men of science, Dr. Strickland replied, though his voice lacked strength. "There must be a logical explanation for the child's fast growth, some rare condition, perhaps genetic, that we have not yet seen or understood. And if there is not, Dr. Saunders asked, "If what we are seeing falls outside of natural events, what then?" The question hung in the air unanswered. They submitted a second sealed report to the Charleston Medical Society, noting Dinina's continued fast growth and the disturbing parts of their exam. The Society's answer was short: "Continue watching if possible. Do not discuss case publicly. More checking needed." But more checking would prove hard. When Dr. Pritchard tried to set up another exam 3 months later, Edmund Hartwell refused. "The child is healthy and valuable," he wrote back. "I see no need for more medical poking. You have your notes. Be happy with that." The doctors had no legal way to force the issue. Dinina and Celia were property, and Edmund had every right to deny access. Frustrated but powerless, they could only wonder about the child's continued growth from far away. Samuel's journal entries from this time show that conditions at the Hartwell Plantation were getting worse. The enslaved community's fear of Dinina had grown rather than lessened as she grew, as several workers asked to be moved to field work just to avoid being near Celia and the child. Thomas Gaines, annoyed by what he saw as silly superstition, responded with more cruelty, using the whip more often to force obedience. People scared. Samuel wrote in July 1848, not just of the child, but of what might happen because of the child. "Feel like something bad coming, something we can't see yet, but we know it's there, like a storm building. Ruth says the child is going to bring death to this place. Says she's seen it before. Long time ago when she was young. Won't tell what she means by that." In August 1848, Dinina turned 17 months old. According to Samuel's notes, she now showed growth equal to a 3-year-old child. She spoke in long sentences, understood hard ideas, and showed problem-solving skills that left the enslaved workers both amazed and disturbed. She had also begun showing actions that suggested she understood the plantation's social levels and her place within it, an awareness that seemed impossible for a child of her age. "The child knows she is property," Samuel wrote. "Knows what that means. Watches Mr. Hartwell like she's studying him. Watches Gaines too. Don't act like a child. Not really. Acts like something pretending to be a child, learning how to be human." On September 3rd, 1848, something happened that would change the situation from mysterious to actively dangerous. Thomas Gaines, drunk and angry after a fight with Edmund Hartwell over money, found Celia in the main house kitchen. What happened is known only through Celia's later words and the observations of other enslaved workers who heard the noise. Gaines, in his drunk state, made moves towards Celia that she said no to. Mad at her refusal and bold from drink, he hit her across the face hard enough to knock her to the floor. Dinina, who had been in the corner of the kitchen, saw the attack. What happened next, according to many witnesses, should have been impossible for a child of 17 months. Dinina walked calmly to where Gaines stood over her mother and said in a voice clear and cold, "You should not have done that." Gaines, shocked by the child, laughed. "What are you going to do about it, little pickaninny?" Dinina looked up at him, and several witnesses later reported that something in her eyes changed, a quality they could not describe well, but that filled them with deep fear. She did not speak again, did not move, simply stared at the manager with an intensity that was deeply wrong in a child. Gaines, scared despite his drunkenness, backed away from the child and left the kitchen. But the meeting would have results neither he nor anyone else could have guessed. The next morning, Thomas Gaines was found in his cabin dead. The facts of his death would raise questions that neither medical exam nor police check could explain, and would finally show just how dangerous Celia's impossible child had become. Dr. Saunders was called to the Hartwell Plantation at dawn on September 4th, 1848, to check the body of Thomas Gaines. Edmund Hartwell, shaken by the sudden death of his manager, wanted an official medical opinion for the record. What Dr. Saunders found defied easy explanation. Thomas Gaines lay in his bed, eyes open, mouth open in what appeared to be a look of terror. There were no visible wounds, no signs of violence, no sign of a fight. The cabin showed no proof of break-in. By all looks, the man had simply died in his sleep, except for the look on his face and certain disturbing body findings. Dr. Saunders's exam notes describe extreme stiffness, far beyond what would be expected given the short time since death. Subject's muscles tight to a degree I have not seen in 30 years of work. Face muscles fixed in look, suggesting extreme fear or pain. No visible cause of death found. No wounds, no bruising, no signs of poison. Heart appears normal upon outside check. Lungs show no fluid. Cannot find cause of death without opening the body. Edmund Hartwell, disturbed but practical, approved an autopsy. Dr. Saunders did the job in the plantation's tool shed with Samuel helping as told. What the doctor found during the inside check troubled him deeply. Subject's heart shows no disease, Dr. Saunders wrote. However, the organ appears to have stopped working suddenly and completely, as if all electrical signals stopped at once. This is not consistent with any sickness. I see no blockages in veins, no shape problems. The heart simply stopped. Edmund Hartwell accepted Dr. Saunders's ruling of death by natural causes, sudden stop of heart function, cause unknown. Thomas Gaines was buried in the plantation graveyard, and Edmund began the process of hiring a new manager. For him, the matter was closed, but the enslaved community knew better. They had heard about the fight in the kitchen. They had seen Dinina's unnatural stillness, heard her cold voice, and now the man who had hit Celia was dead. His heart stopped for no clear reason, his face frozen in fear. That child killed him. Old Ruth told the other enslaved workers, no longer bothering to hide her thoughts. Don't know how, don't understand it, but that child killed that man. Soon as he hit Celia, he was dead, just didn't know it yet. The fear that had been building among the enslaved people turned into certainty. They avoided Dinina and Celia completely now, refusing to work in the same areas, finding excuses to stay as far away as possible. Celia herself seemed to pull back even further, moving through her days like a ghost, caring for her daughter with robotic speed while giving off a hopelessness that frightened those who saw it. Samuel's journal notes from this time show the depth of the fear. Nobody will say it out loud where white folks can hear, but we all know that child ain't natural, that child can kill. Ruth says things like this don't live long, that nature finds a way to fix what shouldn't be. But what if she wrong? What if that thing keeps growing, keeps getting stronger? What it going to be when it looks like a woman but has the power to kill with just a look? Edmund Hartwell remained blind to the workers' fears, blaming their avoidance of Celia and Dinina on the same superstition he had always brushed off. He hired a new manager, a North Carolinian named William Fletcher, and told him to keep order and work high. Fletcher, practical and mean in equal measure, used the whip freely to ensure obedience. 2 months after Gaines's death in early November 1848, Dr. Pritchard happened to meet Edmund Hartwell at a Charleston party. Asking politely about the child from the medical case, Dr. Pritchard was surprised to hear that Dinina was doing well and growing fast. Worried about the child's continued fast growth and curious about any problems, he asked for permission to do another exam. Edmund, still sad about losing Margaret and having no children, had developed an almost ownership pride in Dinina's unusual nature. Remarkable child, he told Dr. Pritchard. Sharp as any white child I've seen, nearly 2 years old, but speaks like a 4-year-old. Fetch a good price in a few years as a lady's maid or house servant. Yes, you may check her. Come by next week. Dr. Pritchard, Dr. Saunders, and Dr. Strickland arrived at the Hartwell Plantation on November 12, 1848. They found Dinina, now 20 months old, showing growth equal to a child of 3 and 1/2 to 4 years. She stood 40 inches tall, weighed 38 pounds, and spoke with grammar and words that would be advanced even for her seeming age. But what disturbed the doctors most was not her body growth or words. It was the quality of her awareness, the way she watched them with a scientific distance more typical of an adult than a child. The way she answered their questions with perfect understanding and careful precision. The way she seemed to be studying them even as they studied her. "How do you feel?" Dr. Strickland asked during the exam. "I feel well." Dinina replied, "Why do you ask? Do I appear unwell?" The question structure, its hidden assumption and return question, came from a mind far beyond 20 months of age. "Do you remember me?" Dr. Pritchard asked. "I checked you several months ago." "I remember," Dinina said, and something in her tone suggested depths of memory and understanding that should have been impossible. "You were curious about me then. You are still curious, but also frightened. Why?" Before Dr. Pritchard could think of an answer, Dinina continued, "People are often frightened of things they do not understand. Are you frightened because you do not understand me, or because you are beginning to understand, and the understanding frightens you?" The 3 doctors stood silent, unnerved by the child's sharpness. Dr. Saunders cleared his throat. "You are very intelligent for your age." "Yes," Dinina agreed simply, "I am." There was no pride in the statement. No childish bragging, simply stating a fact. They finished their exam with growing worry. Every number, every test confirmed the same impossible reality. This child was developing at roughly twice the normal human speed with no sign of slowing down. At her current path, she would reach the physical growth of a 6-year-old by her 3rd birthday and 8-year-old by her 4th, but more disturbing than the body speed was the brain growth. Dinina's smarts, her awareness, her ability for deep thought and complex logic all suggested a mind developing even faster than her body. What would such a mind be capable of as she grew older? What would she become? Dr. Strickland took Edmund Hartwell aside after the exam. "Mr. Hartwell, I must speak honestly. This child's growth is beyond anything written in medical books. Her thinking skills are advancing at a rate that worries me deeply. I would suggest—" "Suggest what?" Edmund interrupted. "That I be worried about an especially smart slave child. Doctor, you confuse me. The child is healthy, growing well, and amazingly smart. These are assets, not problems. She will be extraordinarily valuable as she grows. Sir, I question whether you fully understand." "I understand," Edmund said sharply, "that I have a rare and valuable property. Whatever medical oddity she represents, she is still my property, and her unusual qualities only increase her worth. I see no problem here, Doctor, only opportunity." The doctors left with their notes and their worry, knowing they had no power to step in on what was legally a matter of property management. They sent their 3rd sealed report to the Charleston Medical Society, including for the first time clear concerns about the meaning of Dinina's fast brain growth. "We are seeing an event without precedent," they wrote. "A human mind growing at crazy speed within a body that ages at twice the normal rate. The child shows reasoning skills far beyond her age with awareness and understanding that approaches adult levels. We cannot guess what such a being will be capable of as she continues to grow. We cannot even predict whether she will continue to follow human growth patterns or whether her growth will eventually stop. We are quite literally watching the arrival of something we do not understand and cannot control." The Charleston Medical Society's answer was fast and firm. "All papers related to this case are to be sealed forever. The meanings of the observed events are too extraordinary and potentially disturbing for public knowledge. The doctors involved are told to stop all exams and watching. No further reports will be accepted. This case is closed." The 3 doctors, frustrated but bound by job duty, accepted the society's order. They had no choice, but they would not forget what they had seen: a child who should not exist, developing in ways that defied nature, growing stronger and more aware with each passing month. And in the sealed files of the Charleston Medical Society, the notes remained, measurements and dates that proved the impossible had happened, that a pregnancy had gone from invisible to full term in less than a week, that a child was aging at twice the natural rate, that something deeply wrong had taken root in the body of an enslaved woman and was growing toward an unknown and potentially scary maturity. Celia, the only person who truly understood what she had birthed, continued her daily life in quiet despair. She cared for Dinina because she had no choice, but those who watched her saw a mother who lived in constant fear of her own child. She never sang to Dinina, never played with her, never showed love. She did the minimum required tasks and nothing more, as if any extra contact might invite disaster. Old Ruth, whose knowledge went back decades, and whose understanding went beyond what she could say, finally revealed to Samuel what she had been scared to speak aloud. "I saw something like this once before," she confessed in December 1848. "A long time ago, when I was young, maybe 12 or 13 years, down in the deep south on a sugar plantation, there was a woman, and she had a child that weren't right. A child that grew too fast, knew too much, could do things that scared everybody. Master of that plantation tried to sell the child away, but nobody would buy it once they met it. So the master tried to get rid of it another way." She paused, her face troubled. "The woman, the mother, she drowned herself, and the child both in the river. Said it was the only way to stop what was coming. Said the child wasn't really her child, that something else was using her body to get born, and that it would bring death to everyone if it was allowed to live." "What you saying?" Samuel asked, though he already knew. "I'm saying Celia's child ain't the first one like this," Ruth replied. "And what happened last time this happened? It ended in death. That woman knew. She knew her child had to die, and that she had to die with it. Couldn't live with what she'd done, even if it was necessary. You think Celia gonna? I think Celia already dead inside," Ruth said quietly, just waiting for her body to catch up with her soul. The winter of 1848 to 1849 settled over the Hartwell Plantation, and with it came a sense of coming disaster that even Edmund Hartwell, protected by his money and willful blindness, could not totally ignore. The enslaved workers moved through their jobs with the grim speed of people waiting for a crash. Celia pulled further into herself, a shadow of a person going through the motions of life, and Dinina continued to grow physically, mentally, becoming something that nature had never intended to make. The end, when it came, would arrive on a cold February night, and would provide answers to some questions while raising others that would never be solved. On the night of February 23rd, 1849, the enslaved quarters of the Hartwell Plantation woke to screaming. Many witnesses reported that Celia's cabin was covered in fire, the flames spreading with unnatural speed despite the cold and damp weather. By the time help arrived, the cabin had fallen into burning piles. William Fletcher, the manager, organized a bucket line to stop the fire from spreading to other buildings. Once the flames were controlled, the grim task of searching the ruins began. They found 2 bodies in the remains, an adult and a child, both burned beyond knowing who was who, but clear by size and location. Dr. Saunders was called at dawn to examine the remains and give an official medical opinion. His report, filed with local police and later sealed with his other notes of the case, describes finding 2 sets of human remains fitting an adult female and a child of about 2 to 3 years of age. Both bodies showed extreme heat damage. However, certain findings suggest the fire may not have been an accident. The cabin's door, according to many witnesses, had been found barred from the inside, not locked with the simple latch that normally closed it, but blocked with furniture pushed against it, making escape impossible. Inside the ruins, Dr. Saunders found the remains of oil lamps that had been purposely broken and spread throughout the small space, suggesting the fire had been intentionally set with fuel. Most disturbingly, Celia's body, identified by a metal bracelet that had survived the flames, was found in a position suggesting she had been lying down when the fire started, not trying to escape. The child's body was found beside her, similarly placed. Both appeared to have been dead or asleep before the flames took them. The evidence suggests purposeful action. Dr. Saunders wrote carefully in his report. The mother appears to have blocked the door, spread fuel, and started a fire that would ensure total burning of herself and her child. Whether the child was alive or dead when the fire started cannot be known from the remains. However, the position suggests the child was not trying to escape, which is not consistent with normal behavior. Edmund Hartwell, faced with the loss of valuable property, demanded a check into whether any of the other enslaved workers had helped in the deaths. Fletcher conducted brutal questioning using the whip freely, but no proof of a plan came out. The enslaved community stuck to their story that they had been sleeping when the fire started and knew nothing beyond the screaming that woke them. Samuel's journal entry from February 24th, 1849 tells a different story, one he could never have shared with white authorities. Ruth says Celia did what had to be done, says she couldn't live knowing what her child was, couldn't stand watching it get stronger and smarter, knowing it would eventually bring death to all of us, says Celia gave her own life and her child's life to save the rest of us. Ruth says Celia was brave, that it takes a special kind of strength to do what she did. I don't know if that's true. I just know they both gone now, and the fear that been hanging over this place for 2 years finally lifted like a dark cloud, moved away, and we can breathe again. Old Ruth, asked by Fletcher about whether she had known Celia planned to set the fire, kept her silence at first. When threatened with the whip, she finally spoke, carefully choosing her words to show nothing that could be proven while still saying what she knew. Celia was troubled in her mind, had been troubled since that child was born. Woman who carry a burden like that, she don't think straight. She see things that ain't there, fear things that can't be real. Maybe she got confused in the night, knocked over an oil lamp in her confusion. That what probably happened, just a confused woman and a terrible accident. Fletcher, happy with this explanation that matched the facts while avoiding hints of purposeful action, recorded the event as accidental death caused by mental trouble and careless handling of fire. Edmund Hartwell, having no legal path against a dead woman, accepted the ruling and moved on. He had lost property, yes, but not enough to justify dwelling on the matter. The 3 doctors, Saunders, Pritchard, and Strickland, learned of the deaths through newspaper reports. They met privately to talk about the case's end, each man struggling with his own view of what they had seen and written down over the past 2 years. Perhaps it is for the best. Doctor, Pritchard said quietly, "We were watching something that should not have been. Now it is ended." "Is it ended, Doctor?" Strickland asked. "Or have we simply seen one instance of an event that may occur again? We noted an impossible pregnancy and a fast growth that broke all natural law. If it happened once, can it happen again?" "Doctor," Saunders shook his head. "We will never know. Our notes are sealed, our views dismissed as too weird for belief. The Charleston Medical Society has made clear they want this case forgotten, and perhaps they are right. Perhaps some knowledge is too dangerous to chase." In March 1849, all 3 doctors began making plans to leave Charleston. Dr. Pritchard took a job at a Philadelphia hospital. Dr. Saunders moved to his family's land in Virginia, leaving active practice. Dr. Strickland retired from medicine completely, spending his final years managing money and avoiding all talk of his medical career. None of them ever spoke publicly about the case that had consumed them for 2 years. The mystery that had challenged everything they understood about human biology and growth. The sealed reports remained in the Charleston Medical Society files, gathering dust. their amazing claims never checked or proven. The numbers and dates and impossible views were saved but hidden, known only to a few medical men who took the secret to their graves. Samuel continued keeping his journal until 1863, when he ran away during the mess of the Civil War and made his way north. His writings, found decades later, give the only account of the case from the view of those who lived closest to it, the enslaved people who saw the fear and the mystery and the tragedy that Edmund Hartwell never fully understood. The Hartwell Plantation ran for another 15 years until Edmund's death in 1864, just before Sherman's march brought ruin to much of the South. The property was eventually sold, split up, and built upon. The site of Celia's cabin, the place where a mother killed herself and her child to stop something she believed was evil, is now unmarked, forgotten, its exact spot lost to time and city building. But the notes remain, sealed in files, telling a story that medical science could not explain then, and has never satisfactorily explained since. A pregnancy that went from invisible to full term in less than a week. A child who aged at twice the natural rate with a mind that developed even faster than her body. A mother so terrified of what she had birthed that she chose death over allowing it to reach adulthood. And 3 doctors who wrote it all down with scientific care, then ran from their own discoveries, unable to accept what they had seen with what they believed possible. Was Celia's pregnancy the result of some unknown medical condition, some rare genetic glitch that speeded up growth in ways science has yet to write down? Was her fear of Dinina the product of trauma and mental sickness? Or did she see something real that others missed? Was Thomas Gaines's death truly natural despite its suspicious timing and scary details? Did Celia purposely murder her child and herself? Or was the fire truly an accident? As the official record states, the answers died with Celia in that February fire, and perhaps that is as it should be. Some mysteries resist solving, not because the truth is impossible to find, but because the truth would be impossible to accept. This case shows us how much we still do not understand about human biology, about the mysteries that can occur within a woman's body, about the limits of medical knowledge, and the dangers of assuming we know all that nature can produce. It reminds us that not everything can be explained, that some events fall between the cracks of our understanding, neither clearly natural nor clearly impossible. What do you think of this story? Do you believe everything was revealed? Do you think Celia was right to do what she did, or was she destroying an innocent child out of crazy fear? Leave your comment below with your ideas. If you enjoyed this tale and want more dark historical mysteries like this, subscribe now, hit the notification bell, and share this video with someone who loves stories that challenge everything we think we know about the past. I'll see you in the next video where we'll explore another forgotten chapter of American history that was deliberately buried, and for good reason.